Once upon a time, in a golden kingdom surrounded by blue rivers and singing forests, there lived a king whose name was King Alden. He was not the kind of ruler who ruled with fear. No, he was gentle, merciful, and loved his people more than his throne. Every morning, he would walk through the villages, blessing the farmers, touching the heads of the children, and listening to the poor as if they were his family. People called him the heart of the kingdom, but hearts, even the kindest ones, are sometimes blind. One fateful summer, a young woman arrived at the palace. Her name was Alara. She was stunning, with eyes that seemed to hide storms behind beauty, and a voice soft like silk, but cold like a secret. She said she came from a faraway noble family seeking peace after her father's death in war. The king welcomed her with open arms. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Soon, the king fell deeply in love. Alara's charm was like a spell, a dangerous, quiet poison that worked not through lips, but through smiles. The royal court rejoiced when the king announced, "Alara shall be my queen. My heart has chosen her, and so shall my kingdom." There were songs, dances, and the bells of the great city rang for 3 days. But behind every song of love, there was a whisper of warning, because not everyone celebrated the union. Deep in the shadows of the royal garden, an old woman watched the wedding from afar, Grandmother Leora, the queen's grandmother. Her eyes were sharp like the edge of a blade, and her face carried memories older than peace itself. She whispered to herself, "At last, the circle will close. My revenge will bloom." You see, long ago, when King Alden was just a prince, he had unknowingly fallen in love with a woman much older than him. That same woman, Leora. Their secret affair ended before Alden ever wore the crown. He never knew that Leora swore vengeance when he abandoned her to marry another. Now, years later, her granddaughter sat beside the same man on the throne, the final piece of Leora's revenge. The queen's secret. As months passed, Queen Alara began to change. The kind smiles turned into distant glances. Her laughter faded, replaced by whispers with her brother, Lord Kale, who had come to visit the palace, but never left. At night, while the king slept peacefully beside her, Alara would sit by the window and stare into the moonlight. Writing letters no one was allowed to read. Sometimes the servants would hear her whisper, "No blood of his shall live after him. The crown will be ours." But King Alden, blind in love, never suspected. He gave her everything: power, trust, even the right to speak for him in council. The queen smiled sweetly every time he called her my heart. And then came the night that changed history, the poisoned feast. It was the anniversary of their wedding. The hall was filled with music, candles, and laughter. The king raised his cup of golden wine, looked into Alara's eyes, and said, "To my queen, the light that never fades." She smiled, but her hand trembled as she poured the wine. Inside that golden cup swam a poison, cold, invisible, and merciless. The king drank. Moments later, his voice broke. The hall fell silent as the cup slipped from his hand, rolling across the marble floor. He looked at Alara, confusion in his eyes. "My love, what have you done?" Tears ran down her face, but not from guilt, from the weight of her plan finally ending. As he collapsed, she whispered, "For my blood, not yours." The queen had done it. The king was dead. And before sunrise, she was crowned as Queen Alara the Great, ruler of the kingdom. The kingdoms fall, but peace built on poison never lasts. The people who once sang her name now cursed her in the streets. Rumors spread that the queen's brother visited her chambers at night, that the king's ghost haunted the palace halls, whispering his last words. The royal guards began to vanish. The farmers refused to pay taxes, and the rivers that once shone blue now reflected the dark shadow of betrayal. One night, Alara heard a voice behind her mirror, the voice of her grandmother, Leora. "You have done well, child, but remember, blood calls for blood. You are now cursed to watch everything you love burn." The next morning, Lord Kale, her own brother and secret lover, betrayed her. He poisoned her the same way she had poisoned the king. As she fell to the ground, gasping, she whispered, "So this is love." The last thing she saw was her brother placing the crown on his own head. The final betrayal in a kingdom built on lies. The moral, the message to the world. Years later, storytellers would gather in taverns and whisper the tale of the queen who poisoned the king. They would end every version the same way. Don't fall in love with someone you don't truly know. Even the sweetest smile can hide the darkest heart. And love, when it's built on secrets, always turns into poison. The kingdom never recovered. The throne turned to dust. The crown was buried, and the story became a warning passed down for generations. So if you ever meet someone who feels too perfect, too charming, too beautiful to be real, remember King Alden. Remember Queen Alara. And remember that love without truth is only the beginning of tragedy. The echo after death. When Queen Alara died, silence fell over the Golden Kingdom. No one sang in the streets. No bells rang. Even the river that once sparkled beside the palace turned gray, as if mourning the death of love itself. Her brother, Lord Kale, now wore the crown. He called himself the true king, but every time he sat upon the throne, he felt a chill behind him, as if someone unseen stood there, watching. At night, he would hear whispers, "My love, my poison, my curse." The servants said the queen's spirit still wandered the palace halls, her tears dripping from the ceilings, her voice echoing through the mirrors. Some nights, the guards swore they saw her ghost standing by the king's grave, brushing the dust from his tombstone, whispering, "Forgive me if you can." But forgiveness never came. The orphan of the palace, far from the palace walls, in a small village at the edge of the kingdom, there lived a young girl named Lyra. She was quiet, poor, and carried a strange mark on her wrist, the royal symbol of House Alden. No one knew it, but she was the daughter of King Alden, born in secret before he ever married Alara. Her mother, a healer, had hidden her away when she learned of Alara's jealousy. Lyra grew up hearing stories about the kind king who loved his people and the cruel queen who destroyed him. Every time she passed the broken statues of the royal couple, she felt something stir inside her: anger, sorrow, and destiny. One day, an old woman arrived in her village, her face covered in wrinkles, her eyes glowing like dying fire. It was Leora, Alara's grandmother, still alive, still cursed. She looked at Lyra and whispered, "So the king's blood still walks this earth." Lyra froze. "You knew my father." Leora nodded. "I knew him, I loved him, and I ruined him." The last confession. That night, by the fire, Leora told Lyra everything: the forbidden love with King Alden, the revenge that destroyed the kingdom, and how her own curse had consumed her family. Her voice trembled like dry leaves in the wind. "Child, I thought revenge would bring peace, but it only burned every soul that carried my name. Your father was good. Your grandmother, my granddaughter, was lost. And now the kingdom bleeds for our sins." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Then I must fix what you broke. I will free our family from this curse." The old woman laughed softly, a sound filled with regret. "To break a curse, child, you must face the one who wears the crown of betrayal." The return to the palace. Lyra journeyed to the ruined capital. The once golden palace was now dark, covered in ivy, its windows shattered, its gates rusted. When she entered, the echo of footsteps followed her, her father's, her grandmother's, her queen's. Lord Kale, now gray and hollow, sat upon the throne, surrounded by silence. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "Who are you, girl?" "The daughter of King Alden," Lyra said. "The blood you tried to erase." His hand trembled on his sword. "You lie." Lyra lifted her wrist, showing the royal mark glowing faintly in the light. "This was given to me at birth. My father's mark, his love, his truth." The hall grew cold. The mirrors cracked, and from the shadows, the ghost of Queen Alara appeared, her form shimmering, her eyes filled with tears. "Kale, stop," she whispered. "I did all of this for us, but I never meant for the kingdom to die." Lord Kale fell to his knees. "Alara, is that you?" "Yes, and I am here to end this." The spirit turned to Lyra. "Child, forgive us, free us. Let no more blood fall for my sins." Lyra stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "I forgive you, but forgiveness cannot bring back the dead. It can only heal the living." She raised her hand, touching the ghost's face, and the palace filled with light. The curse shattered like glass. The dawn of the air. When the light faded, Alara's spirit was gone. Leora's final breath left her body that same night, her face peaceful for the first time in years. Lord Kale surrendered the crown to Lyra before vanishing into the wilderness, never to be seen again. And so, the daughter of the poisoned king became Queen Lyra, the heir of redemption. She rebuilt the kingdom not with power, but with kindness. The rivers turned blue again. The people sang once more, and every statue of her father was cleaned and restored. Yet every night before she slept, Queen Lyra would whisper a prayer. May love never blind me as it blinded them. May truth always guide my heart. Final words, the lesson lives on. And so, the story of the king who loved, the queen who betrayed, and the daughter who forgave became a legend sung through generations. The storytellers would end with these words: love without truth destroys kingdoms, but forgiveness rebuilds them. Before you fall for beauty, look into the soul. Before you trust a smile, listen to the silence behind it. And somewhere, far beyond the mountains, where the wind carries whispers of the past, the spirits of King Alden and Queen Alara finally found peace, walking hand in hand beneath a sky that no longer wept. Because even in betrayal, love can find redemption when someone chooses to forgive. Don't let love blind you, and don't let hate define you. The heart that forgives ends the curse that pain begins. Years passed after Queen Lyra restored her father's kingdom. Under her rule, the land bloomed again. The markets were full, the rivers sang, and children played beneath the golden castle walls. The people called her the Queen of Forgiveness. She ruled not with fear, but with love, the kind her father once showed the world. Yet every night, when the candles went out, Lyra's heart whispered one quiet truth: I have rebuilt everything except myself, because while she healed her people, she never learned to heal her heart. She feared love. She feared that anyone who came close might carry the same poison that once destroyed her family. The stranger, one winter evening, during a great storm, the guards brought in a man they had found unconscious near the palace gates. He was tall, cloaked in dark armor, and carried a sword engraved with foreign symbols. When Lyra saw him, she felt something strange, not fear, but recognition. His eyes were silver, bright like moonlight, the same color as the river her father once loved to walk beside. Who are you? She asked. A wanderer, he replied softly. My name is Irene. I come from the northern kingdom, a land that no longer exists. Lyra ordered that he be given food, clothes, and shelter until he recovered. Days turned into weeks, and soon the mysterious stranger began to help her rebuild the palace libraries, teaching her languages from faraway lands. For the first time in years, Lyra laughed again. Irene's voice was calm, his eyes kind. And yet, deep inside, she felt something she could not explain. A quiet warning, a whisper from the past. Do not fall for someone you don't know. The secret letter. One night, while Irene slept in the guest chamber, Lyra found a piece of parchment fallen from his cloak. It was written in the northern language, but Lyra had learned enough to read the words. It said, find the heir of Alden, earn her trust, take what belongs to the north, the crown of redemption. Lyra's hands shook. Her heart broke, not because she was betrayed, but because she had started to believe again in love. She felt like her father all over again, trusting someone whose heart was hidden behind beauty. But this time, she would not repeat history. The test of truth. The next morning, Lyra called Irene to the great hall. The sunlight poured through the stained glass, painting her face in gold and fire. "Tell me," she said, holding the letter in her hand, "was your kindness a lie?" Irene froze, his silver eyes dimmed. "It began as one," he confessed, "but it did not end that way." Lyra's voice trembled. "Then what am I to you now?" Irene dropped to his knees. "More than a mission, more than a crown. You are the reason I can no longer follow orders. I came here for power, but found peace in your heart." Tears filled Lyra's eyes. She wanted to believe him, but memories of her father's last words haunted her. "My love, what have you done?" The choice. That night, Lyra stood alone on the palace balcony. The wind carried the voices of the past, her father, her grandmother, her mother, and even the ghost of Queen Alara. "Do not let love blind you," whispered her father's voice. "But do not fear it forever," said Alara's softer echo. "Only truth can heal the curse," whispered Liara. Lyra closed her eyes. She realized then that love itself was never the curse. It was deception that poisoned hearts. The next morning, she summoned Irene again. "I will not punish you," she said, "but you will leave this kingdom until you can return with truth, not secrets. If your love is real, time will prove it." Irene bowed his head. "Then I will return, not as a spy, but as a man worthy of your trust." He walked away without another word, his cloak disappearing into the sunrise. Years of waiting. Seasons changed. Winters passed into springs, and the queen grew wiser and lonelier. She ruled with strength and fairness, but her heart remained half open, waiting, not for love, but for truth. Then one day, a message arrived from the northern lands. It was sealed with a silver crest. Inside was a letter written in familiar handwriting. "I have united the broken north. I have ended the wars my father started. I am no longer the man who came to deceive you. If your heart allows, I wish to return not for your crown, but for your forgiveness." Lyra read it in silence, and for the first time, she smiled, not as a queen, but as a woman who had finally understood what love was meant to be. Not possession, not perfection, but truth. The reunion. Months later, as the cherry trees bloomed around the palace, Irene returned, dressed not in armor, but in white robes of peace. When Lyra saw him, her eyes filled with tears. "You kept your promise," she said. "You kept my hope alive," he replied. The palace bells rang again. Not for war, not for betrayal, but for a love that had survived time and truth. The people rejoiced, not because their queen had married, but because their story had finally broken the curse that haunted generations. The eternal message. In the final years of her reign, Queen Lyra would often tell her children and her people, "Love tested by truth becomes unbreakable, but love built on lies will always destroy." And when she passed away, old and peaceful, the story of her family became a legend told for centuries. The king who loved blindly, the queen who betrayed, the daughter who forgave, and the stranger who proved that truth can heal even poisoned hearts. Because even after betrayal, even after pain, love that is honest can rebuild what lies once broke. Don't let the fear of past heartbreak stop you from loving again. Just make sure love walks hand in hand with truth. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the pain, the lessons, and the love behind every word, then don't just stop here. There are more stories waiting for you. Stories of truth, betrayal, and hope. Only on KELLVIS BROH. So before you go, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join the family of dreamers and believers. Because here on KELLVIS BROH, every story has a message, and every message has a reason to make you feel. Subscribe now, and let's keep the story alive. This is KELLVIS BROH, where stories speak to your soul. Subscribe now and never miss the next chapter